Hello beautiful, my name is Joany and welcome to my channel. In today's video, it's all about directions. Now in all dance, there's only three directions. There's in place, there's forward and back, and sideways. That's simple. Three. Simple direction. We're going to be doing these directions with the movement, the hip lifts and the hip drops. If you haven't done belly dance before, and if this is so new, I do recommend that you do the hip lifts and hip drops, the two videos that's linked right below here in the description, and then following along with these traveling steps. Now get into something comfortable and let's dance. Deep breath in up. Breathe out. Find your proper posture, which is on the arch of your feet. You're going to lean a little bit forward. Relax your pelvis. Relax your jaw. I'm going to start with drop hips. We're going to go right hip, left. So we're doing movements. We're dancing in place. So that's the first. Dancing in place with the hip drops. So we're going to travel forward with the hip drops. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Now in place. So now backwards. So movement forward and backward. So that's in your direction, forward and backward. Now let's go sideways. Keep the hip drop. Focusing on the downbeat, the hip going down, down, down. Sideways to the other side, to your left. Drop those hips, drop, drop, drop. Now in place, let's just go around in place. In a circular motion. And now we're going to go into a hip lift, but we're going to do a step, hip, lift, but everything is in place. Now let's go a bit faster. Here you go. 2, and 1, and 2. Hip lift, lift. In place, but let's go into quarter turns. Keep going with the same thing. I got this song in loops. Now we're going to go forward and backward. And back. I'm going to travel sideways, but I want you to focus on the hip lift. So we're going to focus on the left, push up, up, up. And as you're stepping to your right, I want you to push up. That's it. So you're lifting that hip. The other one has to go down, has to do the opposite. So hip lift, and this one is down. But I want you to focus on the lift going back. So doing our sideways. A bit faster. And 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. So the way you lift that hip is by pressing against the floor. So the foot against the floor. when I bring my leg together, so the hip lift, when I bring it in, there's a soft bend and then straight leg. And a bend and a straight. And a bend and a straight. Just want to make sure you got this. Just lifting that hip up, 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 up. So in order to bring that hip up, you gotta first flex the knee and then lift. Down, lift, down, lift, down, lift. Bend straight, bend straight, bend straight, bend straight. Good. So let's do all of those directions from sideways, in place, and forward, and back. Ready? So let's do in place. So I want you to go in place. It's going to be the right hip, but go around yourself. Okay? So it's like push, push. So it's just the right hip going up, focusing on the lift. And now switch. Now left hip up and then bring it around. Now we're going to alternate going forward. Push the hip back. Obviously the front will be hip dropped. But focus on the hip going back, straight back. Leg is straight to the back. Okay, now let's go around and walk backward. In place. Let's go forward. In place. So this is called the African walk. Go forward, towards the back. In place, turn facing me. And then let's go side. Hip lift. Lift the hip up and push up. Now let's do the same thing, but we're going to go a little bit faster into a single beat. So we go forward, start with your right foot, and the left hip goes up. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Around for 1, 2, 3. Go back. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. Bring it around. In place, and let's go side. Again, side. And now let's add that step hip lift. Step hip lift or tap. Tap hip lift. Tap hip lift. Good. Now I'm going to put all this together. I'm going to do the tap with the hip lift, focusing on the hip drop walk, and the push hip lift. Let's go forward. And 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. Let's go back. And 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. In place, in the quarter turns. Now we're going to go sideways. I want you to push your right hip up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Switch. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's focus on the hip drop. Hip drop, drop. Back. Drop. Nice and soft. Hip drop. That's it. And then let's go around with the hip drop. All right. You could face me. I'll be facing the back. So I'm in place doing hip drop. You could follow me. In place, you could go down with a hip drop. 1, 2, 3, 4. Up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, drop the hip. Drop. Feel a nice stretch. And I'm gonna face you, keep the hip drop. And let's do the hip drop a bit faster. Ready? And 1, 2, 3, 4. Drop, drop. Now let's do a hip drop in classical pose. And right. A bit faster. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Switch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now just hip drop in place. So we're going to do all those 3 directions with the lift and drops. So let's start with the hip lift in place with a tap. And 1, and 2, and forward. And back. All right, right hip push, go to left. Now hip drop, hip drop, hip drop. I'm gonna add a little kick, drop and kick, and drop and kick. I'm doing a classical drop, kick in place, switch, drop, little kick, drop. If you're having a hard time, don't forget to review the videos that I linked below in the description. And hip drop, 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 going down, in place. Let's do the African. So I want you focusing on the lift. Lift back, lift back, lift back. The front is drop, but I want you to focus on the hip going back and straight leg. And bring it around. Side. Nice and slow. In place, hip lift. 1, 2. Let's do 4 hip lifts in place. Lift. 1, 2, 3, 4. Switch. And 1, 2, 3, 4, and switch. 1, 2, 3, 4, and switch. 1, 2, 3, 4, switch. 1, 2, 3, 4, switch. 1, 2. Now back to singles. And 1, and 1, and I think there's one more song. That's it. All right. So you notice that all you have to focus is in place movement. Now all I'm using is the lift and hip drops. You got direction forward and back, and then sideways. That's the only 3 dance directions that you need to know. That's simple. And forward. And back. Right hip, let's go left. Push. Push. Lift. And now drop the hip down. In place and bring it around. Drop. 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 Don't forget to really flex the knee. If you want to drop that hip, keep your posture nice and straight. So I'm going to be facing them back in place, and I'm going to go a bit faster. And down. And I'm bringing it around. And I'm going to walk forward. Drop, drop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And back with the hip drop. Focusing on the hip drops. Drop, drop, drop. Hip drop, classical pose in place. Drop, 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 drop. switch, and I'm adding little directions forward and back a little bit instead of just being on the same diagonal. I kind of bring it forward and back. Little twist. Now back to just alternating hip drops. And there you have it. In place, forward and back, and sideways. We just did one movement, which was the lift and drop, or two movements, the lifts and then the drops. So yeah, so that was pretty simple, I think. Right? Oui? Just pas? Okay, so if you have anything you'd like to know, and if you have any questions, I am here for you. And you have a wonderful week. And yeah, make dance. Dance is not that complicated. Sometimes we complicate it, but when you think about directions in dance, and that's not just in belly dancing, it's in all dancing, there's only 3 directions: forward and back, sideways, and in place. That's simple. All right. Love you guys. Bye.